Critical attacks are one of the most powerful ways to deal damage in Fallout Wasteland Warfare, but trying to figure out how they work can be pretty confusing. So here on the channel, I'm all for helping you understand and enjoy your games of Fallout Wasteland Warfare. So today we're going to break down this rule, figure out how criticals work and how you can use them in your next game. So in order to find out if a character can use critical attacks, you've got to look for the critical icon. Now, sometimes this can be on their actual character card, but the most common way for a character to gain access to critical attacks is if they're heroic. And just as a reminder, any single model unit can be made heroic. You could make Nora or Piper heroic, but you can't make 3 Minutemen heroic, for example. When you make a character heroic, you'll slip the heroic card under its character card, so it's protruding from the top, and then you just have to remember to pay the relevant caps cost in order to convert a model to its heroic form. So we know our character has access to critical attacks, but how do they do them? Well, in order to carry out a critical attack, you've got to collect critical points. You see, if you look at most weapons cards, on the right side, you'll see this grey-green area, and there's a little number inside a yellow box. This is called a critical meter, which is the amount of critical points you need in order to carry out a critical attack using this weapon. And you can gain critical points through 2 different ways. The first way is when a model who has access to criticals and uses a weapon that has a critical meter, when they carry out a successful attack against a non-friendly model, regardless of the damage caused, 1 critical point token is placed on the weapon card that was used. Now that's a very important point, I'll clarify why in a second. The second way to gain critical points is if when you're carrying out these attacks, you roll a critical icon on your skill dice, which will add 1 critical point token to the weapon that was used in that roll. Now, why are the critical points put in the weapon card that was used? Well, that's because critical points are not pooled. They can't be assigned to any weapon you want or shared among your weapons. The critical points are only relevant for the weapon that acquired them. Now, if the number of critical point tokens on the weapon equals the weapon's critical rating as shown on the card, the critical meter is fully charged and we can unleash a critical attack. So when we want to unleash a critical attack, at the start of an attack action with that weapon, we'll declare for an opponent that we're going to use the weapon's critical attack instead of the standard one. You'll then roll the relevant effect dice that are shown in the card. You don't have to roll the skill dice because when we're doing a critical attack, it's considered to be an automatic success regardless of any other effects or modifiers. So just to give you an example of this, because sometimes it's easier to understand these kinds of things if you can see them physically happening. So let's say our heroic Arcade Ganon has accrued his critical points, he's saved them up, he's filled his critical meter on our Institute laser pistol, and we're ready to carry out a critical attack. So I'm going to declare against my opponent that, hey, I'm going to use my critical attack with my laser pistol. We're going to take the critical points off the card to show that they have been spent. And now, where normally I would just roll, I say just, it's still a lot of dice, but I would just roll a black, yellow, and green dice for my attack in short range, I'll now roll all 3 of those plus an additional black dice, and we'll equally do additional energy damage. And that's very, very simply how critical attacks work, rolling whenever it comes to the dice rolls. So some additional notes that you should know about criticals. When a weapon is fully charged, no more critical points can be placed on the critical meter. When it's full, it's full. When we want to carry out a critical attack, all the other standard rules when carrying out an attack still apply. So line of sight, range, cover, etc. Some weapons will have additional rules regarding how they can be used, for example, only at long range or things like that. So do be sure to properly read your weapon card when you activate a critical attack. If you want to read up on all of this for yourself, critical attacks are covered on page 53 of your core rulebook. But if you're just starting out playing the game, I wouldn't worry about trying to introduce this rule and worrying about critical attacks. Just focus on getting the basics down and you can add this in later down the line. Speaking of basics, if you are learning how to play Fallout Wasteland Warfare, I've got a whole playlist going through everything from setting up a game to breaking down some of the more complicated rules. You can actually check that out here, and I think it might be a bit of a help.